Shankar, Honorable Minister of Women and Child Development, Srimati Smriti Irani ji, Honorable Minister of State for External Affairs, Shri V. Muralidharan, Honorable Minister of State for Women and Child Development, Ms. Debashree Chaudhary ji, Secretary, Ministry of Women and Child Development, Shri Ravindra Panwar, Excellencies, my colleagues in the Ministry, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I warmly welcome you all to this event. Thank you for accepting our invitation to share this afternoon with us. We are meeting on the eve of International Women's Day, a day to celebrate women power, or Nari Shakti as we call it. 2020 also marks the 25th anniversary of the 4th World Conference on Women and adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. To quote Swami Vivekananda, there is no chance for the welfare of the world unless the condition of women is improved. It is not possible for a bird to fly on only one wing. We are convinced that ensuring the rightful place of women in society is not only a moral imperative, but an essential prerequisite for achieving prosperity and sustainable development. We also firmly believe that the only way to achieve the 2030 agenda is to move away from the idea of women development to women-led development. Excellencies, the Government of India is engaged in precisely this endeavor. A social transformation is underway, and the government is an important facilitator through its schemes and legislations. From Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, Save and Educate the Girl Child, to Ujjwala scheme providing LPG connections to women in poor households, and to Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana, which is a government-backed saving scheme for the girl child, we are seeking to ensure that women and girls realize their full potential. It may be a long road, but the journey is as important as the destination. We thought that on the eve of International Women's Day, it would be a good idea to lay out for you the milestones India has crossed in this journey of women-led development and the road that lies ahead. And who better to explain this than our External Affairs Minister and the Honorable Minister of Women and Child Development, two of the most articulate and eloquent voices in the government. But this is not going to be a one-way communication. We will want to listen to you as well. So after the presentations, there will be a Q&A session. With these few words, it is now my privilege to invite India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, to deliver his opening remarks.
My ministerial colleagues, Smriti Irani ji, Muralidharan ji, Debashree Chaudhary ji, secretaries to Government of India, ambassadors, high commissioners, colleagues. It is a very great pleasure to join you all this afternoon for an event leading up to the International Women's Day on the 8th of March. So at the outset, let me thank Srimati Smriti Irani, the Minister for Women and Child Development, for agreeing to deliver the keynote address. My appreciation as well to the Ministers of State, Muralidharan ji and Debashree Chaudhary ji, as well as our secretaries who have worked to make this happen. And of course, to all of you whose presence today underlines your interest in this subject. As those from the world of diplomacy, we all know that the influence of nations in the final analysis rests on their strengths at home. So even as you assess India's energies and activities abroad, I'm sure that one part of your mind is also looking at the changes in our society. And those, without exaggeration, have been truly transformational in recent years. Whether it is the mind-boggling numbers of bank accounts, toilets, gas connections, or school admissions, or indeed the large number of public awareness campaigns, some of which Vikas just mentioned, that have impacted our thinking. This country is very different from what it was just a few years ago. As someone tasked with explaining India abroad, I often underline that the higher profile of recent years is reflective of greater aspirations at home and a higher confidence about its realization. The mindset of New India is one of inclusive growth and deep reforms that together will bring about long-term changes. It is focused on greater harnessing of technology, especially the power of digitization. It is as dedicated to promoting smarter urbanization as to the betterment of the rural sector. The commitment to create a more modern infrastructure is also apparent across diverse domains. And all of this is ought to be done while simultaneously addressing the challenge of climate change. The approach to governance is holistic, and long-standing problems in whatever field are being tackled rather than kicked down the road. So this is truly an era of big ideas, bold measures, and strong implementation. Now, the heart of this effort is focused on our resource base, and for this country, that happens to be human resources. The realization of sustainable development goals is today a key objective of our national development. As we look back at other societies who have rapidly developed in the last few decades, the importance of improving our human development indices is clearly evident. It will, of course, visibly determine the scale and quality of our comprehensive national power, but equally important, the resulting expansion of our pool of talent has a deep significance for the world. It can make a big difference to the evolution of the knowledge economy and the pace of digital innovation. And obviously, given our numbers, India's success in SDG is central to the success of the world. Now, the first 5 SDGs, as you all know, are no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, and gender equality. But the truth is that the first 4 depend very much on the realization of the 5th. In fact, not just the 4, even the goals of clean water and sanitation, clean energy, decent work and economic growth, or industry and innovation are all significantly determined by the contribution of women. The dictum of women holding up half the sky, if anything, underestimates their social centrality. This realization today drives our endeavors in the field of gender equality and women's power. The message that women lead the transformation towards a new India is not just a slogan. It is a fundamental and actionable belief of this government. And leading the efforts to make that happen is Minister Smriti Irani, whom I will now invite to deliver her keynote address. After the film.
To a new dawn of women-led development under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. Gender inclusion, equality, and economic empowerment are the key tenets of the country's progress, and the government is committed to path-breaking initiatives and policies to deliver to this agenda. India is upholding its promise of holistic health, equal educational opportunities, safe sanitation, and financial inclusion to every girl, every woman. Women are leading healthier lives. We are on track towards achieving Sustainable Development Goal target for reducing MMR by 2025, 5 years ahead of the 2030 timeline. Known as the world's biggest insurance scheme, Ayushman Bharat is providing free, preventive oral, cervical and breast cancer screenings to millions of women from vulnerable sections. Prime Minister Modi, in his first Independence Day speech after his election in 2014, made a clarion call towards Swachh Bharat mission to publicly set the vision of making India open defecation-free in 5 years. The nation in the past 5.5 years helped over 110 million have access to a toilet, fulfilling one of the most basic human needs after 7 decades of independence.
पहले मलेरिया बहुत होता था, लेकिन पिछली वर्ष में मलेरिया हुआ है और मैं इसकी वजह से कोई बच्चा नहीं कर सका।
80 million women are benefiting from safer and faster ways of cooking by access to LPG gas cylinders. Women in India are at the forefront of economic change. 110 million have received credit support through Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana and are building their enterprise and dreams. Women in agriculture represent up to 68% of the employed women in India. We are building agricultural value chains that enable women to engage in sustainable agriculture practices. We are ensuring safety and security for women through initiatives like 181 helplines, one-stop centers for responding to incidences of gender-based violence, and gender resource centers that have been set up in multiple states. To ensure empowerment, access to education for young girls is increasing under the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao Abhiyan. India is taking the lead by putting in place progressive legislative environment for improving women's participation and decision-making. The ART Bill, the Surrogacy Regulation Bill, and the Progressive Medical Termination of Pregnancy, which has been amended to expand access of women to safe and legal abortion services to 24 weeks. All will ensure dignity, autonomy, confidentiality, and reproductive justice for women in India. Legislative changes such as the abolishment of triple talaq and paid maternity leave have corrected structural barriers that reduced legal parity for women. India has the largest workforce of women frontline workers, 900,000 ASHA workers, 1.4 million Anganwadi workers, and 650 million women in self-help groups who work relentless towards better access of services and economic empowerment of women. Let us celebrate efforts of these women. In the 70th year of adoption of our Constitution, we celebrate the contribution of 15 women who helped write the Constitution. India has come a long way towards ensuring equal opportunities for every girl and every woman. Despite the impressive progress, we realize the challenges continue. We are committed towards adopting a multi-sectoral approach to a gender-empowering India. India stands committed to her promise and SDG Goal 5 and 16 of ensuring gender equality and women's empowerment and promoting just, peaceful and inclusive societies. As we move closer to celebrating 75 years of Indian independence, we greet the promise of a new India with empowered and enabled women.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's not every afternoon that you sit with the global community and deliberate and discuss on women. And I'm grateful today that thanks to the support and the endeavors of the External Affairs Ministry, especially my colleagues Jaishankarji, Muralidharanji, we stand here today to reflect on the number of efforts undertaken under the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister with regards to women-led development. As we speak to you today and engage with you, our effort is to ensure that we learn from not only the mistakes in the past and the rectification since then, but also learn from new ideas that you might want to share, given your global experience. As the film here has articulated or highlighted rather well, We were a part of a system where 110 million women got access to a toilet for the first time in their lives in the last 5 years under the leadership of Shri Narendra Modi. We had a legacy where women were looked upon as instruments of despair. And the fact today, under the able leadership of our Prime Minister, we celebrate the entrepreneurial leadership capacity of 150 million Indian women who have received financial institutional support for their business concepts under the Mudra Yojana, tell us that now women in India write the future for the Indian economy. Today I also recognize the efforts made by various ministries, be it the Health Ministry, which has helped us arrest maternal mortality rate, or endeavors which are legislative in nature, like the Assisted Reproductive Technology Bill and the Bill for Medical Termination of Pregnancy, making India now a global leader in the reproductive rights of women across the world. Today, I also celebrate the potential of the girl child who seeks better educational prospects under the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao program of the Honorable Prime Minister, which has resulted in enhancing our performance, saving daughters, a country that was beleaguered with child sex ratio of 934 today celebrates that 1,000 girls are born for every 1,000 boys born in our country. We also today remembered the 15 women that helped us draft the constitution of our country. But we pay homage to women who have achieved much in the fields of academia, science and technology, mathematics, governance. And for the first time in the history of our country, with the blessings of the Honorable Prime Minister, we are in the process of establishing 21 chairs in the name of women trailblazers across the country in all universities, colleges, and technical institutions. But the endeavor today is not only to speak at you, but to engage with you. And that is why I'm joined by the Ministry of Women and Child Development Minister of State, Debashri Chaudhary, who hopes to engage with you because the Prime Minister often says that ours is a growth which is committed not only to the cause of women and children, but also a growth which cannot stand isolated from the growth of the global community. So we seek to grow with you, we seek to engage with you, and for that, the effort made by the MEA is something that I'm extremely grateful for. This is perhaps the first time ever that as we stand at the eve of International Women's Day, we have global leaders such as your kind selves engaging with us, because the future is now, and the future is Indian women.
Yeah, may I now invite Honorable Ministers to come to the stage. External Affairs Minister, Shri V. Muralidharan ji and Debashri Chaudhary ji. Excellencies, you've heard the two short presentations by our External Affairs Minister and by the Honorable Minister of Women and Child Development. The floor is now open for an interactive session, questions and answers. So please, go ahead. Yes, the Ambassador of the European Union. Please, there's a mic.
Thank you very much. Yes, I am the Ambassador of the European Union. Let me thank you for organizing this event today in the eve of International Women's Day. Indeed, as the European Union, as India, believes that gender equality is not just a matter of fairness and justice, but also it's an absolutely indispensable part the Sustainable Development Goals. And thank you also for to achieve gender equality. possible on the policies in place to address the diminishing numbers reports. These figures have been. For a variety of reasons. But can you tell us what's your thinking?
Thank you, Excellency. With permission of Mr. Jayashankar, there are 2-3 issues on which I'd like to reflect upon. You're right when you talk about the numbers in the labor workforce participation with regards to women. And this is not a challenge only for the subcontinent. In fact, it's a global challenge. I think that when we set these benchmarks, one needs to possibly ponder over the fact that do these numbers even capture the entrepreneurial skills of women who do not want to be reduced to just labor, but are leading their own small businesses. And just to highlight this point, we have 150 million women now who have received banking support for their own businesses. Do they get counted as a workforce, or do they have a separate meter of measurement with regards to their own leadership abilities in the business community? The other issue is that when we look at women and children, we are normally of the opinion that these are segments of social expenditure. And I believe that under the Prime Minister's leadership, we now look at women and children from the perspective of social investment. Because if you want to empower women, you have to invest in their entire life cycle. So how do you have a more talented workforce? You would like a talented workforce which is skilled, but what if your talented workforce is only measured on a degree? Today, when we look at the Global Inequality Index, we are measured only on the fact whether women above the age of 25 have a degree or not. And if they don't, then are they measured well only on the basis of the skill, and especially their business skills? So I think that this kind of a deliberation is essential to trigger those conversations. So I'm also of the opinion that when you look at the self-help group movement in India, we've had 59 lakh self-help groups, Excellency, in the country, each group having 10 women. And each of these groups have received support and credit from banking institutions, not from the government of India. And the credit support that they've received in the past 5 years has been 2,77,000 crores. And as a woman, I'm extremely proud to share that they paid back each and every bank. The NPS for these women is just 2%. Do they get counted in any indice globally? They don't. And I think that's where the conversation should also shift. There is much that is being done, but does that get counted?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Big Ambassador. Great initiative, and definitely we are here to show respect for what women have been doing for us, and not only today, but we have to do it each and every day, I would say, 365 days here. At the same time, I have to say that I believe all of us ambassadors, we are taking tremendous strides to tie up with local women. We organize a number of events here, and my offer to you, Honourable Minister, would be if there is any idea, we would be more than happy to tie up your ministry and definitely expand horizon, not only here in the capital, but we would also be ready to travel if you believe we can do something together. This would be, if I may call it, offer. Then definitely I may have also a question. By the way, congratulations. I have been here, this is my 5th year, so I can follow what has been done over the last 5 years, and congratulations. But at the same time, as we heard in this beautiful video, challenges still ahead. And my question to you, with your permission, Honourable Minister, to Minister Irani, would be, if you could elaborate a bit on those challenges, and to what extent people's mindset, what role people's mindset plays in those challenges. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Excellency. In your opening remarks, you make me an offer I cannot refuse. So I'm happy to take you up on that offer. In fact, I would like to extend it to the global family who is present here today under the aegis of the MEA. I think the time has come for us to learn from each other's best practices and to come together on one platform to also apply ourselves to solutions. We were a part of a global community which did not have many facets of engagement or communication. In today's day and age, can we sit with one structure for a year or two and not evolve solutions as challenges come by every day? I think we cannot afford that kind of laxity anymore. How can you engage better with us? I think that the best practices that you've had, or for that matter, even failures, those are the best lessons for anybody in governance. We are in the business of diplomacy, and hence it is our endeavor always to put the best foot forward. But can we as communities tell each other when we failed so that the counterpart does not sink in their resources into those kind of failed opportunities? I also feel, Excellency, that there is a concept of sister cities, but can there be a concept wherein we say sisters of the world unite on issues which are not counterproductive, but issues which address possibly challenges with regards to better skilling, better educational opportunities. And I think one of the greatest windows that we can have where we can better ourselves with each other's help is women in science and technology. If we are talking about the next industrial revolution being led digitally, I think that there's a lot that you can contribute in the Digital India program from a gender perspective, as has been pronounced by the Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. My name is Ahmed Al-Banna. I'm the United Arab Emirates Ambassador to India. First of all, I would like to thank you all for initiating this event and looking at not only women transformation, but women-led transformation. I wanted just to elaborate on a couple of things in the UAE. As you all know, that in the UAE we have taken big steps in reference to women enactment. 50% of the UAE parliament are women. We have more than 9 ministers in the UAE, women, females. About 50% of the total employees in the Ministry of External Affairs or Ministry of Foreign Affairs of United Arab Emirates are females. There was a delegation last year from the United Nations on women enactment, came to Delhi, and one of the members of the delegation was our representative in the UN in New York. And there has been a lot of works and a lot of interaction in reference to women enactment. I would like also to propose on this platform and to have a memorandum of understanding. I know India, or at least since I have been here, and what I have noticed and what I have experienced, has taken big, huge steps in reference to women enactment. We would like to benefit from that. We would like to share that knowledge or get that knowledge from you on creating a platform between United Arab Emirates and India in reference to women-led transformation and women enactment. Thank you.
Excellency, without a reflection on my gender, this particular proposition is something that I defer to my colleague in the MEA with regards to the MOU. But let me say this, I'm grateful for the recognition that you give us as a nation for our efforts in strengthening capacities and possibilities for women. And I also applaud the pride with which you speak about the achievements of women in your country.
The Ambassador of Poland.
Adam Brakowski, Ambassador of Poland. Thank you, Excellencies, for organizing this meeting and for very interesting presentations. Myself, I have a majority of women in my house. I have three daughters, one son. So I would like to ask you, what are the steps to ensure the women's security? It was a topic discussed for many years here, and I would like to ask you also about the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao Abhiyan. What are the results and what are the next steps?
Excellency, the two-part question that you have. Firstly, with regards to what our government plan with regards to safety and security of women. I think one of the clarion calls given by the Honorable Prime Minister has not only about cooperative federalism, but also to ensure that there is interministerial support and coordination for issues which might not be limited to one ministry alone. And one of the biggest beneficiaries of that call of the Honorable Prime Minister has been the Women and Child Development Ministry. We have worked very closely with the Ministry of Home Affairs to ensure that across all police stations in the country, now we will set up women's help desks. We also are going to ensure that across all districts of our country, we will have anti-trafficking units to help protect women and children. In the past one financial year, this particular financial year, our endeavor is to set up 1,023 fast-track courts so that expeditiously judicial support can be given to women and children who have filed cases against perpetrators of crime. And I'm happy to report to you that we are not even halfway into the financial year, but 900 courts, the money is already gone for the establishment. We are also dedicating ourselves to now bring about legislation which is tougher on trafficking. We are also working very closely with the Ministry of External Affairs to help those women who are overseas. I think that the work of the Ministry of External Affairs, especially with regards to support provided to our citizens overseas, has become something that is celebrated not only domestically, but has become an example for the world to embrace. And I also feel that when you talk about security, we don't want to look at it from the prism of only violence. We would also like to ensure financial security, and that is why the Prime Minister's flagship scheme of Mudra is extremely important. In the presentation made today, you saw that women's saving accounts in banks has gone up and gone beyond 77%, which means for the first time women have access to and right over their own money. The second aspect is you asked me about Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. We had the state of Haryana Excellency, which was extremely challenged. And the child sex ratio at birth was somewhere around 818. Today, the district which was the most challenged has gone up to 940. And the PCPNDT Act, which actually punishes those who force a woman to abort a female fetus, has been so stringently implemented by the state of Haryana that we've seen that one of the states which was lagging the most in this segment today has become a national leader in terms of women and children's empowerment. So there are many stories. In fact, just yesterday we called top 25 districts of the country which are doing innovative approaches in encouraging saving of the girl child, and we invited them and we felicitated them in the national's capital. I'll be happy to share their achievements and small stories with you as well.
Ambassador of Italy.
Thanks so much, Minister Jaishankar, Madam Minister Irani, for this meeting, for the presentation, and congratulate the Indian government for the achievement already got in the gender equality policy. One of the questions raised by Minister Jaishankar was also the relation between gender equality, sustainable development, and climate change. So since we have listened about the importance of some credit scheme for women, also in agriculture, I'm wondering if also there are some scheme for sustainable agriculture addressed to women entrepreneurs in India. Thank you so much.
I think that we are not limiting ourselves to sustainability only in agricultural practices, Excellency. We're also pushing it into manufacturing. And one of the greatest examples of that is textiles. 70% of those who are employed in the apparel segment are women. And now we are looking at bettering our supply chain management.
The minister is also the Minister for Textiles, so that, just so that you all know that.
So now we are ensuring that supply chain management are crafts that are taught to women, so that they look at sustainability from an affordable point of view. Normally when people engage with manufacturers and say the word sustainable, people presume that it has a high cost to it. And given that our segments are 80% MSMEs, now we are going in and teaching them better management practices and telling them that sustainability is not only about treating effluence, it's also about treating, let's say, better productivity practices within the shop floor. When you asked about agriculture, Excellency, there is a correlation between agriculture and textiles with regards to sustainability. We in textiles have a segment called technical textiles. And the Honorable Prime Minister recently in the budget announced a first national mission on technical textiles, which also has a segment of agricultural textiles. And in the past 1 year, we've managed to establish with evidence, scientific in nature, that when farmers use agro-textiles to do farm covers, they use 50% less water and their income goes up by 50 to 60%. So we are hoping to converge all these efforts across ministries to make sustainability the buzzword, but not only for women, but also men. And in response to the Polish ambassador, this book is something that celebrates the districts that have done well, the small stories, which includes even religious institutions who have gone out of their way and spoken to people within their communities to lead the change. And I'm hoping you leave this book today. It'll be a part of the folder that has been given to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am Ambassador of Bahrain, Abdurrahman Al-Gaoud. First of all, I would like to thank you, Excellencies, and congratulate the incredible government of India on the women-led transformation. I'll just give you a very, very short brief about my country, and then I have a question. Bahrain is led by women. We are a small country, but led by women. 1907 was the first woman who went for election on the municipality. However, things developed since, and we have a Supreme Council of Women, chaired by Her Royal Highness, the wife of His Majesty the King, with members from different fields, from the women work and forces to develop women further. And of course, similar program is going. Maybe we took some of your programs and put it into our, which is we are proud of, because we have to work together. And that's, in the meantime, I would like as well to invite you to visit Bahrain and meet Her Royal Highness at a time of your convenience, of course. And as my colleague said from the UAE, an MOU with the Honorable Minister of External Affairs will be very, very excellent to build up such a relation to develop women. But one thing is fact, whether we like it or not, we, the men, we cannot live without women. That's for sure.
I agree, Excellent.
Thank you very much. Working force in Bahrain of women in all aspects, from cabinet ministers all the way down, are almost 44%. So we are coming to, inshallah, we hope within the few coming years with the women, and if we work with the incredible India, we might have 50-50, and then women take over, and then we sit at home. And of course, they are the best thing to control men and put them on the right track. I am talking about my own experience, anyway. In the meantime, I would just like you to, if you can, please elaborate on the triple talaq issue that I've saw in the video. Thank you very much, and congratulations, and all the best.
Excellency, given the sensitive nature of triple talaq, I would ask Jaishankar to also join me in this, but I'll speak on the issue as a woman. I've had the privilege of leading my party politically as the national president for the women's wing. And as a part of that privilege, I've had the opportunity of meeting many women who were deserted by just saying 3 words, talaq, talaq, talaq. What I know of the Holy Quran, I know it does not permit it. And I'm very proud that the Prime Minister got inspired by that sense of justice and ensured that there was a constitutional mandate which reflected what the Quran also said. Today, as a woman, I'm happy that no girl in this country, especially from the Muslim community, may fear a marriage in the fear of desertion. But I would allow Jaishankar to speak on this issue.
Excellency, I think the issue, as my colleague just said, was how capricious, how casual, in a sense, how irresponsible divorce had become. So at the end of the day, it was a social issue. It was a social issue, it was a gender issue. In fact, I still remember, I don't know whether it was you or somebody speaking in the parliament at that time actually had comparative statistics on rates of divorces, and we were among the highest of a particular community. I made one broad brush statement, which was I said that there were problems which have been long in the society. We all know that. The tendency has been to say, well, this is a difficult problem, somebody else will come and take care of it, let me get past my 5 years. I think one of the hallmarks, frankly, of the government today is there are problems we need to deal with. You gave us one example, I could give you others. It's important for this country, for this society, that these problems are addressed. And, my own sense is, frankly, you look at the beneficiaries of this. I think their verdict was written on their faces.
Excellency, I just want to add that social reform has not been limited to one community. In the Hindu religion, there was no permission for burning of the bride. But we as a legislature ensured that the law reflected the will of the people, irrespective of their religion. In my religion, I'm a practicing Hindu, there was no legal or religious sanctity to burn a woman on the pyre of her husband's death. And the law reflected that collective will of a democracy and a civilization. Similarly, we understood that girls at the age of 12, at 10, cannot be married off. And that is why India works stringently on issues of child marriage. To look at the issue from the prism of only one religion, yes, becomes at times a tad bit, how do I say this politely, a tad bit controversial. But I think ultimately the Prime Minister's dedication is towards gender justice. And as Jaishankarji said, he is not the kind to skirt over an issue because it's politically inconvenient.
Ambassador of Slovenia. Mike is at the back.
Thank you very much, Minister Irani. I am impressed by your presentation, and Minister Jaishankar. Thank you for this opportunity. I've been to India first time 42 years ago, and I've seen big changes since then. My question would be, because we did face this women's equal rights in Slovenia as well, even though we believed we have an equal society. But there are so many different angles of this equality. And one of them, of course, is education. Could you maybe explain a little bit? I'm sure you do your part in education, but what are other areas you try to, let's say, educate people on the importance of equal rights? And also, since we are discussing the invitations, you are also welcome to come to Slovenia. We can share our experience. We are trying to be very vocal in women's rights and girls' rights and children's rights as well, especially those who follow our activities in Geneva. So our doors are open. Thank you.
Thank you for the offer, Excellency. The Prime Minister has given Jaishankarji the mandate to travel the world. I handle the domestic front. But insofar as education and women, I think that one of the fundamental needs we saw with regards to secondary education, and when we got into the details of it, was the inability to access a toilet. And that is why in the first year of his office, the Prime Minister gave a clarion call and a deadline to those in governance with regards to building that infrastructure. I happen to have the privilege of being the HRD minister, the education minister then. And the deadline given to us was to ensure that every government school in this country has a functioning toilet for the female student. We managed to build over 400,000 toilets in just 10 months. We did it with our active support of our state governments and our citizens, which meant that the government of India, under the leadership of the Prime Minister, recognized that the problem lay not only aptitude of the teacher or the ability of a girl to learn, but the problem lay somewhere else, which was access to a toilet. The second issue being, how do you take forward in terms of education and address gender disparity? One of the greatest challenges is the challenge of counseling not only girls but also boys. And in the ministry, we have now engaged with NIMHANS, which is a national institute which provides counseling support and actually helps bring more and more medical experts into the field. We, in this forthcoming year, will ensure that every district has a listing of qualified counselors made available to every school. We will make sure that every police station, every collector in the office in every district has access to working counselors. Our child helpline now will intertwine its efforts with the counseling team at NIMHANS. I'm sure you've heard of the institution. And we will also make sure that apart from this kind of an engagement in counseling, schools are mandated through the education department to have counselors who look at not only academic issues but also cultural or familial issues. And those counselors will also be engaged with under the one umbrella of effort by HRD, by Women and Child Development, and the Health Ministry. So we are hoping that academically, one, we look at counseling support for our children, but we don't limit that support only to young girls, but also involve young boys in it. So when I look at cases of domestic violence, I'm thinking of protection and counseling support not only for the female who has been beaten, but I'm also equally bothered about the child who happens to be a part of that marriage. So that that child, be it a boy or a girl, doesn't take away a lesson that it's okay to beat on a woman, no matter whether she's accomplished or just a housewife. And that is why under the leadership of the Prime Minister, they say, and as Jaishankar said, that this is an era of big ideas. But the Prime Minister often reminds us that God is in the details.
The Ambassador of Sweden.
Thank you, Ministers. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for this wonderful way of acknowledging International Women's Day. I'm trying to be a good Nordic. I'm highly cognizant that I'm probably the 7th or 8th male to ask for the floor. But you do ask also for our experience. And I think one experience that is fairly widely shared by now, not just in Sweden, but certainly in the Nordic region, is feminist foreign policy, feminist governments aside, 50% lists party lists at elections, etc., which have proven very effective ways of raising and equalizing representation. I think one practical experience is that shared responsibility is also a great enabler when it comes to opportunity. And therefore, if the film that you showed, just to highlight one issue and to make the point indirectly, I think, if you showed the film to a Nordic audience, you would probably have some people asking, it's wonderful, all the things that you have made available. How many Indian men have been provided safe cooking gas?
Excellency, I acknowledge the role that your country has played on feminist issues. Given the kind of population that we serve, given the kind of narrative that we've been trying to address, I think that the cultural context of women-led transformation is quite different between Sweden and India. For too long, international agencies have said he for she. And I, for one, have always said that is not a nomenclature I would like to embrace. Because the bias that has been sustained here is that she exists only if he does. We civilizationally have had a concept of Ardhanarishwar. I'm proud to say that because in our civilization we've also said that a human being is a whole when he has the feminine and the masculine side of it. Was it ever diplomatically documented? No. But what we can say today as we come together to talk about women-led transformation is to talk about those women who escaped the opportunities of better education because they were cooking at home or collecting firewood. To discount that drudgery and the fact that efforts were made to get those women out of that drudgery would be doing a great disservice to the legacy of drudgery that we've actually helped address through the Prime Minister's leadership. So I recognize the fact that there are many Nordic countries who have redefined women's empowerment and the women's agenda. But that in no way should lessen the fact that in my country, menstrual hygiene protocols were written and led by a man called Narendra Modi.
Finally, some women ambassadors.
I'm Hebel Marasi, Ambassador of Egypt. Thank you very much for this interactive session. I congratulate you, Excellencies, honorable ministers, on all the achievements that you have mentioned. I come from a country that is, have a lot of common things with India. I come from a country that honored women since the days of the pharaohs. Women were very honored at that time. I come from a country that we have more than 8 lady ambassadors, lady ministers in our cabinet now. But Constitution, we have almost 25% of the members of parliament which are ladies now. We have 2 lady governors for the first time in Egypt. At the same time, having said so, at the same time, we have a lot of challenges. And I think the challenges that we have are similar to a certain extent to the challenges that ladies have and the girls have here in India. That's why I suggest, Mrs. Minister, that we have a National Council for Women in Egypt, which is reporting directly to the President. And it's taking care of all the problems and the challenges that are facing women in Egypt. I suggest that we have some linkage between your ministry and the National Council for Women in Egypt, because the problems in both countries are almost will not say the same, but a lot of common problems that are facing ladies are in the 2 countries together. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. I think that Mr. Jayashankar will respond very favorably on the offer that you have so made. I can only say this much, ma'am, that given my understanding of women's issues across the globe, there is much more common that we actually observe. So I am grateful if we get an opportunity to engage with you. But with regards to the National Council that you espouse, I must here register with you that the Honorable Prime Minister has, for the first time in the history of our country, set up a gender budgeting ecosystem to study the gender impact across budgets of all ministries, which includes the infrastructure ministries. So I think that is a great step in a lovely direction, and I'm sure, given the existence of how your council engages within your country, there might be lessons that we can take from there as well.
Thank you very much. Basically, I'm the ambassador of Ethiopia. Basically, I don't have a specific question. I'm here just to congratulate all the achievements. And my government also believe in women-led transformation, and that's why, like, starting from last year, we have got the first female president, and half of the cabinet is full of women. So this really shows how my government is working hard in gender balance. I believe that Ethiopia and India has been doing a lot in relation to gender issue. And starting from the last 20 years, we have got a lot of Indian investors who are working in textile factory. And Ethiopia is working toward making Ethiopia the hub of textile, so that we assume that we would get a lot of employment for both men and women. And we know that India is having similar kind of textile projects, so that I believe that by working in such kind of textile-related project, my government would open a lot of employment opportunity for women, and this could be one of the lessons that we can get from India. So despite having different kind of challenge, but we still have different kind of common issues that we share. So I would like to appreciate the initiative, and I believe we can really work together in learning how we can work in making women empowered in different kind of sectors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. In fact, I must here add that one of our biggest brands in textiles in India, Arvind, has set up home in Ethiopia. And I'm of the opinion that, yes, you're right, there's much that we can do with regard to the industry in terms of participative and possibly at times competitive structures, which can help us enhance our opportunities together.
Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Joseph from the Chargé d'Affaires from the High Commission of Rwanda. I just felt it would be injustice not to speak about Rwanda when we are talking about gender. And I know most of you have heard about Rwanda in this sector. And I'd like to congratulate the government of India for the steps and the achievements made in this sector. Particularly when we speak about women-led transformation, Rwanda understands it much better than any other one. Allow me to share just briefly our experience. After 1994, when there was genocide in Rwanda, after the war, we had almost 60% women and 40% men. Had we not taken on women-led transformation, Rwanda wouldn't be where it is today. So for anybody who would want to know what it would mean to have women-led transformation, you can learn from Rwanda. And today, you know that there is a very bad history of Rwanda. But when we speak about Rwanda today and we talk about gender, I think no one here can stand to say we are ahead of Rwanda. Rwanda has over 60% of its members of parliament women, over 50% and 51% in the new government. In the cabinet, there are women. And this has been achieved, it has been built over a long period of time, looking into policies, looking into programs, just as what India is doing today. So as many excellencies have suggested, Rwanda would be open and ready to collaborate with India, since we are really on the same track in collaborating and cooperating in the sector of gender, to share the knowledge and the experiences. But allow me, Honourable Minister, to just ask one question. Well, it has been a long way where we have come from, and we are somewhere, but there have been challenges, as there have been. There are issues of education, issues of finance, and many others. But one of the challenges that has attracted my attention, and whenever I go to different fora, they talk about it, is the issue of tradition and perception about women versus men. When we were discussing in a seminar recently, there was a seminar in Limeridi organized by UN Center for Human Rights Relations, something like that, and other women organizations. This issue came up again, and when they shared, it was just like Rwanda. What is the place of a woman in our traditions? India is just exactly the same as Rwanda. Honourable Minister talked about the he for she, that you are not a proponent to that. In Rwanda, we were too much proponents of that because the perception was a little different. Because one guy said, the challenges, the issues that women face lie with men. So if we were to better fine-tune men, women wouldn't have these issues. So that is how the he for she concept was perceived. And taken on, the achievement was really good. But look, if you look at the position, the traditional position of a woman, it has been a very big challenge in achieving where we are. Whereby, there has been a lot of education to tell women, oh, you can do this, you can be able, you can play in a role, but you need to how is it with India, and how has this been a challenge? To the extent that, I'm sorry to take this wrong time, one gentleman gave an example that just a young brother will be asked to accompany his big sister, accompany your sister to the playground. But you can never say, accompany your brother to a playground. So that is the position of the traditional woman. How has it been a challenge to you? Thank you.
Excellency, I can say with all authority at my command, Indian men are not the problem. I can also say this, that today I am sure that as a man, Jaishankar can be extremely proud of the fact that the very concept of women-led development has been given by a male leader called Narendra Modi. As far as how traditionally Indian men, or for that matter, our society has looked upon women, the gods that we worship, I can only speak from that experience. The goddess of academia, of knowledge, is a woman. The goddess of finance, and not only the one who's footing the bill for this convention, but also traditionally who's worshipped, is a lady called Lakshmi. Even the goddess of war, Excellency, rides on a lion called Durga. So traditionally, we've had that kind of respect given to women. In fact, I can say as a Hindu woman, the marriage contract was devised by a woman, not a man. So yes, there have been challenges over centuries. One would be foolish not to acknowledge those challenges. as we become more and more of a global community, how much of the good or how much of the bad have we absorbed into our systems is an issue for us to reflect upon spiritually or societally. But in terms of governance, let me say this. Today, when you look at the energy, or for that matter, the achievement under Mudra Yojana. Mudra Yojana was never designed to serve women, but it became the hallmark of female capacity in India. When the Prime Minister designed the Mudra Yojana, it was to ensure small credit is given to encourage entrepreneurship. The intention was never to give it to only female entrepreneurs. The fact that 70% of the beneficiaries turned women told us about the capacity which is yet untapped. And why do I celebrate this particular issue is that Mudra Yojana means a woman has to draw up her business plan. And on the basis of a business plan, go to a bank, convince the bank manager, and then get the credit. The fact, as I said in one of my remarks, that 59 lakh self-help groups, 5.9 million self-help groups, have now received over 277 lakh crores worth of credit, not from the government, but from private financial agencies, talks about the immense untapped business potential of women. And that is why I reassert that when we talk about women-led development or transformation, we don't say we are at war with Indian men. One of the latest examples is the medical termination of pregnancy cabinet decision. Today, we have taken a decision to allow medical termination of a pregnancy up to 24 weeks. It is a matter of debate in many countries, but there was no shrill response to this particular decision of the government, not by any man in this country, which means men in my country have recognized the right of a woman individually to her own reproduction systems. And that in modern India, New India, is something that I applaud as a woman. So in my country, men are not the problems. At times, perception and opportunities.
We have about 10 minutes left for the Q&A session, so best.
Thank you very much. My name is Judith Kangoma Kapijimpanga, High Commissioner for Zambia. I wish to congratulate the honorable ministers seated in front of us for the huge transformation that India has undergone. And I think it's a good playground for some of us from Africa to pick up the best practices which we can domesticate back home. India has stood the test of time, and it is the hugest democracy in the world where Africa can learn from. Speaking for Zambia, my country, I think we've caught up in a few strides. Today, in Africa, we have the first ever vice president. Out of the 20 people in cabinet, I think about 9 or 8 are women. And of pivotal reflection is the re-entry policy for young girls who get pregnant. After they get pregnant, they stay at home, and once they give birth, the government has put in a policy where they can be allowed to get back to school. So we are moving towards that, and there's a huge discouragement of early marriages. In Africa, a girl, once they reach puberty, sometimes, more often times, especially in the rural areas, are offered for marriage. That has been discouraged, and parents who send their children, the young girls, below the age of 18 are taken to court. So those are some of the strides that the government has put in place. Other than that, issues to do with community advancement in terms of women-led transformation. At community level, there is money given to every women-led community advancement groups, especially tailoring groups, agriculture groups that are given money. So in a nutshell, I wish to state that Zambia is moving towards women-led transformation. I submit. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Excellency, for that observation. I can only say this, my compliments for your continuous engagement, and there is one affirmation that I can give. We, in conjunction with some agencies, have decided to dedicate this year, particularly to bring adolescent girls and boys who are out of school back to school. So that is an engagement that I am hoping to pursue with my colleagues in the Ministry of Education. We've recently received support from the World Bank for that endeavor as well. So the Prime Minister has given the flagship call for nutrition, and now to get these children back to school, no matter what the number, is also an endeavor that we are pursuing.
Assalamu alaikum, namaskar. Good afternoon, ministers, excellencies, colleagues. My name is Hamza, Ambassador of Algeria. I would like to thank and congratulate ministers for organizing this afternoon for the women. Briefly, in Algeria, the women started to vote the very first day of our independence in 3rd July 1962. 60% of student university are girls. We have ambassadors, minister, and maybe among the Arab and Muslim countries, we have a very rare society where the army, we have 3 major generals are women and 6 or 7 women are general. I would like to ask you, Madam the Minister, not as a minister, but as a woman. I think there is an hypocrisy and injustice vis-à-vis the women, not in India, not in Algeria, not in Africa, but in the world. I will give you a very clear example. All bad things like hurricanes and viruses got a woman name. Why in Corona? Why not Corona? And let's say Katarina, hurricane, and do you think that we should not do something at the UN level, at least with the health organization, to say that it's not good to give that names to women because the women are our mother? Thank you.
Excellency, I believe if you need urgent attention to something, you better call it a woman.
Mr. Irani, Mr. Shankar, thank you very much. I must introduce myself. My name is Koromoto Godoy. I'm ambassador of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela to India. I have been in India for a year. Yesterday was I completed my first year. And I was amazed that every time I met any Indian fellow, any friend, people will say, where are you from? I say, I am ambassador of Venezuela. Then the answer was 90% the same. Oh, the country of the Miss Universe. So I thought, well, there is something wrong. So I started to explain, always after that question, that Venezuela is much more than beautiful ladies in a swimming suit in an international contest. Yes, Venezuela is a country that has been struggling for 20 years for social justice. And we cannot talk about social justice without talking gender. Gender equality adds the women to all levels of participation, not only in the government, but in the communal level. And because we have been building our society, we have concentrated the power in the community level, you see great leadership of women. We have a lot to show with India in that sense about the way we have empowered women in the last 20 years. Just an example, I can tell you that today we have a vice president that is one of the most popular politicians in Venezuela. Our vice president is a lady. We have had in the past in the judiciary, in the Supreme Court, majority of ladies representation. We have a large representation of women in the National Assembly and in the Constitutional National Assembly of today. And I will be more than delighted to have the chance to visit you and to work with your team to interchange experiences, to learn from you, because there is a lot that we may learn from India also, and also share with you all what we have done in the last 20 years at least for social inclusion and women incorporation to society and equality of gender. I want to close my remarks by saying, Mr. Irani, that you are the best example of women leading transformation in your country. It couldn't be a better face and a better leadership to represent that you have achieved. I congratulate you.
Thank you, Excellency. Congratulations on your 1-year anniversary. And also, Excellency, I will only say this. We in the Ministry of Women and Child Development are endeavoring to have one platform only for research and to understand, like I said at the beginning of my remarks, best practices and also possibly some failures that we should all reflect upon. When we call ourselves a global family, then the family not only celebrates the achievement, but a family which is kind and compassionate also heeds to warnings. So I think that today's deliberation and discussion also gives me an opportunity to implore to everybody in the House that if there are studies or if there are efforts that you've made in your country which can help us govern better, I'm more than happy to learn from your experience. And thank you so much, Jayashankarji, Muralidharanji, for hosting me and Debashri Chaudhary today and helping us engage with the community here. Grateful.
That brings to an end the Q&A session. I would like to thank the ministers. And now, for the last word, I turn over to our External Affairs Minister for his closing remarks.
Well, I think let me add my word of thanks on behalf of all the ministers and the ministry to all of you, Excellencies, dear colleagues. Often we discuss when we sit here or in other formats what India does in the world, outside India. So I'm really very pleased today that we had an opportunity to look at the changes which are taking place in the society where all of you live. Having been in your position in different countries, I know that understanding the society and reporting on it is an important part of your responsibilities. I hope that today's discussion was useful in giving you more insights and better understanding. And if I see enough smile on your faces, then I might decide actually that we could do it perhaps with some other issues which would be of equal interest to all of you in other parts of the social sector. Once again, I thank you very much, and I would invite you for a cup of tea. Thank you.